Hi, Phyllis here from southernfrugal.com. This morning I'm going to make some Navajo fry bread, and this is my first time making it. I've known several recipes, but I'm going to try it for the first time. We've had Navajo bread out west many times and I love it, and so now I'm going to try making it. So hopefully this will turn out good. So let's get started. We'll position the camera so you can see. We'll need some non-fat dry milk. I'm going to use King Arthur all-purpose flour just because I can't find the bread flour in the store now for some reason. And salt, baking powder, and then just water, and I am using the distilled water, and it's just ever so slightly warm. Alright, first thing we're going to do is measure out 3 cups of flour. And you don't want to sift this flour, just measure it right from the bag. So that's 3 cups. About 1/4 of a cup of non-fat dry milk, and this is going to make a softer Navajo fry bread. If you don't want it, if you want it crispy, then you need to just leave out the milk. So I'm going to use 2 heaping teaspoons of the baking powder. And now I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. I'm going to also use a heaping teaspoon of salt. And just mix those things up really well. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is add the water. Now, the Navajo bread is a lot about technique, and the ingredients can vary, you know, by not putting the non-fat milk in it, using more flour, and some people put a little oil in it and that type of thing. So I'm just going to mix it up now with my hands, and I'm starting out with 2 cups of warm water, and I'm sure I won't use all this. I think I'm going to probably use about 1.5 cups. So we're going to start out and see. I'm going to just keep mixing that as you're adding the water. Alright, that's about 1.5 cups. We might need more after all, so we're just going to see. Because you want the bread to be soft and pliable. Yep, we're going to need more water. Now, to get the bread right, sometimes you have to add more flour, and sometimes you have to add more water, but the whole idea is to get it to a certain stage, you know, a certain pliable stage. I need just a touch more water. Alright, so I've probably definitely used 1.5 cups, and that is just slightly warm water. Now, in the technique, what we're really doing is developing the gluten in the flour. And to do that, you just kind of have to stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. And when it gets to the place where it will form a ball on its own, then you know you've got it right. And you want it to be soft, you don't want it to be hard. So you can also knead it, or whatever you want to do, but the whole idea is to stretch the gluten. I'm going to add a little more flour, mix that up, and just a teeny bit more flour. I'll also get it off my fingers now. Now this gluten will develop because a little more flour. I'm going to form it into little balls, and I'm going to let it sit for about 20 minutes. So I'm just getting it all together now. I'm getting this off my hands. I just add more flour there. Now I'm going to just kind of knead it together. You don't have to knead it much, just enough to form a ball. And stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. And that's what develops the gluten in the flour. And it's still feeling a little sticky, so I'm going to use a little more flour. Just kind of stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. A little more flour. Now usually when you're making yeast breads, you also end up stretching the flour either by kneading it, because when you knead it you're pulling it around, which is stretching it out. But there's no yeast in this. We're using baking powder. Alright. Now I'm going to form this into some palm-sized balls because I want it to be about this big around, the actual fried dough pieces. So to do that, I want to form it into little balls about that size. And you're going to a little more flour on. Try to get them all the same size if you can. Just little balls. Just about palm size. And see how I'm pinching them off, taking my hand like this and just squeezing them off. Excuse me. Squeezing another one off. Alright, I'm going to finish this up. We're going to put a damp cloth over them and let them sit for about 20 minutes and I'll be back. Alright, I've formed these little palm-sized balls. See? Palm size. And now they need to sit here and rest a little bit for about 20 minutes. And it did make 9. And then I'm going to show you the technique to form them into little round disc-like things, and we'll fry them. So we'll be back in about 20 minutes. Cover them with a damp dish towel. While I'm waiting for the fry bed to rest, I decided to make a little, I'm going to call it Cheatin chili, okay? So I have cooked about a half a bell pepper and a medium onion, taken some cilantro out of the freezer. Now I freeze this in my ice cubes trays and put a little ice cube on top of it and make sure it's in water, and that way it retains most of its taste. So I'm going to put that in right now. Alright, and I'm going to use some garlic powder, some chili powder, and some cumin. And I'm going to use some chili beans from Lux. Now those are new, so I'm going to try them. And I'm going to put in a little can of Hormel chili with no beans. And I promise you, no one will know that this is not homemade. So we're going to call this my Cheatin chili. Alright, we'll be back to do the fry bread in a minute. Alright, we have completed making our Cheatin chili. Here it is. And now we're getting ready to fry the Navajo fry bread. And this is where the technique comes in. I've put just a little bit of oil on my hands. Let me make sure you can see this. Now I'm going to stretch this out. I flattened it out in my hand first. Okay. Again, this is my first time making this, but I do think it's like elephant ears that you get at the fair, and I have made those before. So it actually seems a little sticky to me, so using a little flour might work better. Now I've got my oil heating up, and it's going to need to get up to 375 degrees because we want to fry these pretty quick. So just stretch it out as much as you can. Now I'm going to definitely, when I do the next one, I'm going to use a little flour. See how thin that is? And my grease isn't hot yet, so we're going to have to kind of hold off a little bit on this. So when my grease gets hot, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and the first one failed, so I'm going to try again. Now it's taken a very long time for my oil to heat up, so I'm going to go ahead and try another one. This time I'm going to use flour instead of oil. I looked at a lot of videos and read a lot about the Navajo bread, and for me, I think that the flour is what's going to work, not the using the oil on your hands. So they showed how to flip it back and forth and just keep stretching it and stretching it. And it does stretch fairly easy, and if you get a hole in it, you can just mend it. And those women, the Navajo women, were doing it like that, flipping it back and forth. I hope you can see this. See how thin it is? Now they also poke a hole in the middle of it, and they say that that keeps it from, you know, puffing way up in the middle. So I think that's about thin enough. Don't you? Yeah, that's about thin enough. And my oil is at 375, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in. Now I am going to have to poke a hole in it, keep it from popping up so much. And they say you're supposed to cook it until the edges get a little brown. So I'm going to turn my burner down to medium high now. And let's see if my thermometer is at 370. Okay? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do another one while that one's cooking. And I'm going to just keep a close eye on it. Seems to me like it should be a little hotter than that. So I'll turn it up just a touch. I'm going to go ahead and, now this is the one I messed up on a while ago. So, I'm going to stretch it out first, put it in a little flour so it doesn't stick to my hands. Okay, I hope you can see that. Just keep stretching it out. Now, I don't know how to do that they do. So I'm just going to have to do it. Now, I know that you don't want to have your fingers like that because they'll poke through. And again, this is the one I messed up on a while ago, so I'm just going to try to redo it. Just keep stretching it and stretching it. They say that after you do this a while, you'll get really used to it and you can make them perfect every time. So obviously mine aren't going to be perfect, but I do think they'll taste pretty good. So now I'm stretching it and stretching it. It's kind of like stretching pizza dough, really. And again, this is the one I messed up on the first time. Alright, I am ready to flip that over now. It's turned brown on the edges. And I think probably on the second side it's not going to have to cook as long. Let me see, I've got a hole in it there. They say you can just patch it. So this one isn't going to be very pretty, but we're going to cook it anyway. It needs to cook just a little bit longer. And I am having to keep my burner just a little notch below high. Now out west around the Four Corners area and a lot of the little towns, you know, close to that area, at any restaurant you go in, they're going to serve the Navajo fry bread. Alright, I'm going to take this one up now and put my next one in, because this looks like it's done. I'm going to hold it up and let it drain back in the skillet. That's what it looks on the other side. These are very similar to elephant ears. You can just put it on some paper towels to dry. Alright, now this is the one I messed up on, and I'm going to go ahead and fry it. And what they do, the Navajo women, go ahead and poke a hole in it right to start with, so we'll try that. Alright, here goes. You want to be real careful around the grease. Alright, while that one's frying, I'm going to do another one, and let's see if I can't do a little bit better on this one. First thing I'm going to do is get a little flour on it. And then I'm going to just flatten it out as much as I can. And see, after you let it sit, that gluten develops in it, and it's much easier to stretch then. And I'll have to tell you that those Navajo women really know what they're doing when they're making these, because they just flip it somehow back and forth and keep stretching it and stretching it. And they keep their fingers like this so their finger doesn't poke through it while they're stretching it. Alright, I think I'm getting more of the hang of it now. See how thin that is? Alright, this next one is ready to turn over. So I'm going to turn that one over now. There it is. And again, obviously on the second side it doesn't have to cook as long. See, it's actually got a little edge on this. Can you see that? A little bit of an edge. Alright, we can be ready for the next one now as soon as this one gets done. Cook it just a minute longer. Now some of the recipes don't use the powdered milk, and they say it makes the bread, the Navajo bread, crispier if you don't put the milk in it. But if you want one that's kind of soft, you go ahead and put the milk in it, powdered milk. Okay, there it is. That looks pretty good, even though that's the one I messed up on. You want to let them drain in the skillet a little bit, and then transfer them to a paper towel. Okay, now this one I think I did really well on, so I'm going to put this one in now. You want to be real careful putting that in that hot grease. Poke a hole in the middle of it. Okay, on my third one, excuse me, I think I did pretty good. So now I'm going to try, this will be my actual fourth one. I'm going to dip it in that flour a little bit, just to make it easier. And just start stretching it all around. Now I'm sure, you know, everybody's really got their own little technique, but I did notice that most of the women were doing it here, and then they flipped it back there, and then they flipped it back over there, and I don't know, I guess I need to take lessons in that, but if I can just get it out thin enough, it's going to work pretty good. Alright, we're ready to flip the next one over now. Let's go back over here. It's just barely brown around the edges. I'm going to keep stretching this one. Now, when we were out west, we just loved the fry bread. It was just so good. You can even, we've had it in restaurants, they put honey and butter on it, and oh boy, that is really, really good. And again, they're very similar to elephant ears, I think. Maybe a little better than elephant ears. Alright, I think this one might be ready now. Yep, there it is. Go ahead and put this one in. I think this might be my best one. Poke a hole in the middle of it. And I can see the reason they said you need to poke a hole in the middle of it, because if you don't, the whole thing just comes way up. So I'll poke some more holes in it because I don't want it coming up that high. Alright, I'm going to finish fixing these. I've got 5 more to fry after the one that's in the skillet, and we'll be back and I'll show you how I serve these. Alright, I have completed frying out the Navajo fry bread, and I did have 9 pieces. Now I've already positioned them on the plate and put some of my Cheatin chili on them. And the next thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese all on top. Whole bunch. And then on the side, kind of on the side of it, I'm putting lettuce, shredded lettuce. And then on top of that, a dollop of sour cream. There we go. There we go. Okay, we are ready to eat, and this looks pretty good to me. Now, I did not make them perfect, as you can see, and I'm going to have to work on getting them round. And I'm also going to watch some more videos of those Navajo ladies stretching them out and flipping them from hand to hand. So there's my Cheatin chili. Real easy. Now I'm going to get the recipes for you. Here's a Navajo fry bread, and I did use flour instead of oil to stretch out the dough. And there's a little node. To make it crispier, you want to omit the dry milk. Now, I noticed that mine are pretty darn crispy, so I don't know, maybe that will work. I don't know. Anyway, there it is, the recipe. And here's the Cheatin chili. And I call it Cheatin chili because it's so easy to make. You just use the onion, a little bell pepper, 15-ounce can of Luke's chili beans, and they are new on the market, a 7.5-ounce can of cornmeal chili, 2 tablespoons of chopped cilantro. Now I used frozen, but fresh would probably be better. And I put in cumin, chili, and garlic, and a couple of teaspoons of sugar just to sweeten it up. And that's all you have to do, and just serve it over the Navajo bread, or if you're in the South, you probably want to serve it over cornbread. It's very quick. I would say you can make this Cheatin chili in about 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to go back over and show you something else. Because I used flour to stretch them out rather than oil, you see what it did to the oil I fried them in? A lot of that flour got it, so I'll have to kind of strain that off if I'm going to reuse that oil again. And again, here's another look. See how crispy it is? And that's what it looks like on the opposite side. Turn another one over. There it is. And I suspect these are going to be very, very good. I haven't tasted them yet, but I can't wait. And again, there it is. And this looks almost exactly like what we got in a little restaurant just outside of the Navajo reservation at a truck stop, and it was quite delicious. All right, and there's our iced tea. So we'll be back with another recipe later on. All right, hope you'll try this, and remember, this is the first time I tried it, and I thought I did pretty well. So, see you next time.